As a therapist, there are like certain groups of people I try to avoid after like being in this profession for a while in my own personal life. And one of them just happens to be people obsessed with being a good person. People who live their lives like really, really strongly desiring to be perceived as good typically are people who have a really hard time being introspective. They're highly defensive and they don't really take feedback really well, which ironically gets them to the opposite of their mission. So yeah, I just like can't take it. It's like very frustrating. It can be very annoying. This is just my own personal opinion. Like this isn't like more like my clinical reflection. It's more like since working with so many people over the course of so many years, people who engage the world with an obsession of how they're being perceived typically are going to have a hard time when they receive any negative feedback. Constructive criticism does not work for people who are obsessed with being perceived in a good way. And I say this to say, if you are someone who struggles with being or the desire to be perceived as good, maybe you grew up in an environment where people like were hyper judgmental or hypercritical, for example, it is going to take some true reflection on how you receive information from other people. And when you receive critical feedback, how you react to that feedback is going to be super important. So typically, it makes sense to defend yourself if you know you've experienced like emotional pain from being expressive or you from being judged. If you feel like you've been judged a lot throughout your life or your childhood, you're going to want to like immediately react when somebody offers any form of critical feedback. You need to develop a filter between like what you know to be true about yourself. And sometimes you have to take in feedback from other people to improve because you are not alone in your environment. But all of that to say, you have to work on these skills. Everybody isn't going to be in a position to want to navigate that with you because it can be very frustrating when you're engaging with somebody who is very hard to provide feedback to, because when you're engaged in community, how can you be communal with someone who is more worried about their perception than your feelings? That's it. That's my hot take of the day.